very good evening. You're watching The Money Show on ET Now. I'm Mubina Kapasi. This is the show where we get you your daily dose of everything about personal finance, and not just about investing money, planning money, saving money, but also knowing how to spend it in the right manner. And that's the aspect that we'd like to focus about today, spending money. Now, I know at times of COVID, it's times where, unfortunately, a lot of us may be facing some sort of income constraint, or revenue constraint because of the lockdown. And hence, there's a very important, parameter, or you could say another important tool in helping you spend, and that's credit and debit cards. So we are going to be delving into credit and debit card usage, how you can get your card to work for you to get you the best deals. And to talk about that, I have with me Kunal Shah, co-founder of Cred. We are going to be talking about the app. We are going to be talking about interesting data that Cred has discovered among the major credit card users of the prime cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore. Kunal, pleasure having you with us today. Thank you so much for joining us on your debut on The Money Show. So Kunal, I want to start off first with, why don't you just start off with an introduction for our viewers on Cred? What I know it's an app. I do have it on my phone as well, by the way. But tell us, and for the uninitiated out there, how does it work? How do credit card users use Cred?
First of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for being a member of Cred. Cred started with a very simple mission that can we reward good financial behavior, and can we encourage more trustworthy and creditworthy behavior in general. So what we started is a very simple concept that users and members can get rewards for paying their credit card bills on time on Cred. And that basically creates a good financial discipline with this behavior. A lot of time people have this view about credit cards being good and bad, and we tend to have extreme views on that. Our view is that it's a great product if you know how to use it well. And our mission is very simple. Can you get rewarded for paying their bills on time? At this point of time, we allow MasterCard, Visa card, Amex cards, almost every card that you have. The only condition that we have is that we only allow users right now to be above 750 credit score. It's a very simple thing that we want more people to be conscious about their score and actually move up to improve their scores to be a member and enjoy the benefits of that. So we are doing two things. One, getting more responsible credit card usage. Number two, we are creating awareness about credit score and more engagement around maintaining a good credit score for your future needs.
Yeah, in fact, in The Money Show as well, we've time and again emphasized on how important it is to, pay your obligations in time, all of your financial obligations, loan, credit card, so on and so forth, to be able to get a good credit score. All right, now that we know what Cred is, it's basically an app through which you can pay your credit card bills and in turn get rewarded for the same. Let's talk now about using your credit card. I think a credit card has not assumed more importance, than it has now, simply because people want to limit physical transfer of cash. They want to try and pay online, and a credit card is the best tool, of course, to do that, right? So what exactly are the benefits today if you use a credit card to make payments versus using cash, apart from, of course, the fact that you're going to limit your human contact?
Right. So I think there are primary three methods that are being used right now for any transaction. One is cash, as we have talked about. Second is debit card or UPI, which is the second bucket. And the third bucket is credit cards, right? Credit cards allow most customers to get additional liquidity by having to pay for those cards probably in 30 days to 50 days. Most credit cards give you the extra credit limit to pay for that. And over and above that, usually credit card spends results in some rewards. So all credit cards have variety of different rewards, from, let's say, airline miles to fuel points to cashback points and all of that. So the idea is very simple. Can you create a very good behavior to use credit card? A lot of time, what I've noticed is that customers choose to use credit card only for large expenses. It's actually not required. You could be using credit card for almost all expenses. And I think we are seeing a pattern where digital transactions are going to be opted a lot more versus cash, naturally, for the reasons that you mentioned. But also more and more credit savviness is coming in right now, where earlier a lot of customers would do small value transactions on UPI and debit card, and only large value transactions on card. But now we are seeing an interesting pattern where there is no reason to avoid to make almost all your transactions on a credit card and pay them on time on a regular basis. Uh, One interesting pattern over here that we have noticed is that the new tap and pay cards are actually probably the safest thing, because you really don't have any contact. You just have to tap your card on a machine and put it back in your wallet. And we are seeing an increasing usage of that. I believe in the next 18 months or so, almost every credit card is going to be tap and pay. And many online players will also not require OTP for transactions under 2,000 rupees, which will make it probably the most convenient method, as well as the most safe method to pay.
Yeah, in fact, I think the RBI as well now is perhaps looking at relaxation on these tap and go payments methods. And I think Kunal, we've had this conversation earlier with some of some cyber security consultants about how actually tap and go could be a bit of a safer way, to pay in terms of avoiding cybercrime versus swiping your card. It avoids the skimmer problems, etc. as well. That sometimes does lead to money being swindled from your card. All right. Now, Kunal, I think you also mentioned a very interesting point, and that is the categories. In our head, and I'll admit, I too was of this opinion. I would usually pay my flight tickets, or I would be paying for a fancy electronic gadget that I perhaps buy online or from a store. I would use my credit card for those expenses. I wouldn't use it for my day-to-day expenses. And I suppose that mindset as well is slowly changing, or will absolutely have to change. How can, Kunal, how can one use credit cards in such a way? Every credit card, of course, every card company has certain reward points. Some of them are travel specific points. Some of them are fuel, fuel rewards, etc. So do you recommend that, individuals should have cards for each category? For example, this is my, travel card, or this is my fuel card, this is my shopping card, etc. Because I think that's a logistical nightmare as well, right? To keep track of so many cards. So how can individuals use their cards in the best manner so as to get maximum, reward points?
So, Mubina, what we have seen is that people tend to have life stages, and they tend to have different preference for cards at different life stages. Usually, the first card is an optimizer card where you're just trying to reduce the cost of something that you're spending on, and you would prefer a more cashback type of rewards versus something else, right? At the next life stage, when you have some amount of stable income, you're looking to kind of enhance your lifestyle, and you're trying to say, hey, can I get something to do with a store, a branded stores credits, or something which is going to enhance my lifestyle. And what you see is that as the affluence grows, a lot of preference comes from, let's say, just having airline cards and other things. Also, India also has a very unique problem, which we've discussed many times on many shows, is that the female participation of labor is actually quite low in India, and therefore you notice that skew also on credit cards. 90% of credit cards are owned by men, and only 10% cards are owned by women. And in the US, whereas the ratio is quite equally skewed between men and women, a lot of long tail cards make a big thing. So a lot of co-branded cards of, let's say, a store like Macy's would be there in the wallet, and a Sephora card would be there, and so on and so forth, because they each give you the separate benefits. And therefore, long tail cards have not done as well as they should. The only co-branded cards that seem to have worked so far have been some branded retailers or airlines. And I think the only thing I would say is that a lot of times people tend to get really worried about having 3-4 cards when they're optimizing, because they tend to forget their due dates, and in trying to save 50 rupees, they end up paying 500 rupees interest charges, right? So Cred allows multiple cards to be managed seamlessly on the app, so that even if you have 5 credit cards, we have a customer who regularly uses 25 credit cards on the platform, right? And it's quite fascinating on how much they kind of optimize for doing different things with different cards. But I think as long as you have a tool like Cred, it probably makes sense to have multiple cards and manage it. But if you are going to have trouble to manage cards, it's probably better to have 1 or 2 cards that you will remember to pay on time, and not in trying to save some points, end up incurring huge amount of interest and late payment fees.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. But clearly, if Cred can handle 25 cards, then I suppose maybe it'll help you go around this entire card payment and due date, bit in a more seamless manner. Okay, now, you guys, of course, have got a lot of members on Cred, which means you get a lot of interesting insights as well on how, your members and, credit card users are spending. So, Kunal, you mentioned about how people were earlier using cards only on big ticket items, but now because of the lockdown, I think your survey is showing that even food now, and in fact, that has been the one category where people are using their credit cards the most.
Actually, it's been quite fascinating. These lockdowns have caused some very interesting behavior changes. So first of all, we observed that the total spends on credit card dipped by 10% in March and approximately 50% in April. We are still to see the May data, but that's largely been the trend. But interestingly, the spends on subscriptions have gone up a lot, right? And in form of all subscriptions. It could be anything from Hotstar, Netflix to even Tinder. A lot of subscription behavior has just kind of gone up. We've also noticed a very peculiar behavior that happened only in March. Uh, the spend on fuel went up. Although the people were not going anywhere, they just probably fueled up their cars in anticipation of any trouble that they may have. And we saw a spike in that. Interestingly, we saw in some cities, grocery spends actually went 2 times more than normal spends on card, and that could be because of two reasons. One is they were earlier not using the card for groceries, A, or B, they were actually buying more groceries than required because they cannot go out and eat out anymore, or there is this general need to say, hey, let's just stock more just in case of any emergency, right? So we observed that behavior as well. There has been a obviously decline in travel related spends, eating out, but we have also seen a massive uptick now in terms of e-commerce spends since the non-essentials have been allowed. There's a lot of pent-up demand. In fact, we are noticing that people are spending unusually more because there is this need of, oh, I have a home office, so I need a chair and I need a table and I need to get something else. And I think there is a lot of pent-up demand that is kind of coming in. And the whole summary is that this event has caused some very interesting skews on behavior. And some categories have got decimated and some categories have just taken off. We've seen unusual spends on education that has come in as well, which was not to be seen as a major category of spends before on credit cards. So interesting times.
Yeah, I think when you're working from home, you tend to all the more find little kinks that are missing in your home, and you want to add them, I suppose. So I think sometimes working from home can also be harmful for your wallet, because even though you're not spending that money on traveling, you're spending it on trying to, just fidget around with the little things in your home. So yes, I guess I'm a little unsurprised. So yes, I think groceries now has gained a lot of prominence. Insurance as well, I think, is something that's popping up over here. Medicines, Mumbai has really stocked up on medicines, so that's too interesting. And of course, not to mention subscriptions, right? Because as we spend time at home, we obviously need that entertainment, which at this point of time, the only source of is our television screen. So again, that too is not something very surprising, that this has become a key area of spends. And why not, right? Because any which ways, digital subscriptions like this were usually paid online. And for that, obviously, you need your credit card and debit card. That's been absolutely stable. Okay.
And one interesting thing I want to highlight over here is that we noticed, so we launched a product called as Rent Pay. People were allowed to pay rent through their credit cards on Cred. And we saw massive uptake on that. And we were actually quite surprised. We thought it's a great product to launch in these times that people want to have some liquidity. But we did not expect the kind of response that we got. We've seen a huge number of customers opting for paying rent through credit cards, which is an unusual category that is kind of made into one of the categories of spends.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now, Kunal, how can one use the Cred rewards that accumulate in the app when they make the payments through Cred? Why don't you throw some light on that as well?
Sure. So what we do is, on one side, we have merchants who want to reach out to high quality customers who have the propensity to spend. And we have consumers who are wanting to enhance the rewards that they get over and above the credit card. So the credit card gives you rewards and credit gives you rewards on top of that. So what happens is that we have many brands who come in and throw in an offer. For example, we had before the lockdown, we had many gyms who would offer a 1 month membership free to our members, because they could just pay the bill, get some coins, and can redeem it for a 1 month membership, right? We had a lot of players who would offer a free haircut because they could just kind of experience a new brand store and get liking it and trying more services over there. We had many brands who do free trials with us. So we've seen many FMCG companies come and say, "Hey, here's a free facial for you. Here's a free a trial product on skincare," and automatically there is a trial of good quality customer matching with merchants and a lot of interesting things happening on that. We've seen D2C companies particularly benefit a lot over here, where they would find it very hard to acquire customers. So we have seen many small D2C companies do extremely well because they get a lot of customers to try their brands because they discovered them on Cred. And finally, before the lockdown, we used to have bunch of high quality restaurants giving their offers, and we believe in not giving super aggressive discount, which is extremely hard for merchants to sustain. We believe in getting the right kind of offers so that both the customers and merchants actually benefit from that. And because they get high quality customers against that, many restaurants that have otherwise never discounting on any other platform came to Cred because they got the right kind of customers to match up to. So I think our rewards platform philosophy is very simple. Can we have something to do with luck? We sometimes have games as well. So for example, we have a large prize, and you can play a video game on Cred, and whoever scores the highest amount of points gets that prize. And we see huge amount of engagement on some of these reward formats, and we are trying more and more new things. During COVID lockdowns, we had a challenge of many merchants not being open. So we launched a lot of digital events where people could learn new skills by participating on through this reward. So we had around 100 plus events where members learned new skills during lockdown through these rewards.
So it's a win-win, basically. I mean, you've got you've got the giving company as well, the service provider that's getting good quality customers, and perhaps loyalty as well if the customer does like the brand of the product. And out of personal experience, I'll tell you, I saw my colleague one day walking in with a snazzy new pair of earphones, and he said, "Oh, I got this through Cred," and I'll tell you that's what prompted me as well to get on Cred. All right. All right. Now, I know you mentioned about how, of course, you're going to have disciplined customers and people who pay their credit cards on time with a minimum score of 750 that essentially do become members of Cred. But these are unprecedented times. I mean, COVID-19 has obviously affected all and sundry, regardless of your net worth, or your financial position. And hence, the RBI introduced the concept of moratorium. Questions galore that, is this applicable for my credit card? Can I use it for my credit card? Because the fact is that the interest that is charged on your credit card is way higher than a personal loan or a home loan. So the expert advice then, Kunal, what would be your recommendation?
I think many people have misunderstood the moratorium, right? When you do not pay your bills on time, there are two things that happen to you. One, you get marked poorly on a credit report, which can impact your future loans. And the second thing is you get charged interest for the period that you're not paying. The RBI moratorium clearly states that the impact on the credit bureau report will not be there if you choose for the moratorium to not pay, but your interest will continue. And if you allow credit card interest to continue for 6 months at on an average of 35 to 42%, you may end up, let's say if you have a 1 lakh rupees due, you may end up paying 1,35,000 rupees by the end of 6 months sometimes, or even sometimes higher depending on the charges that you may be incurring on top of that by delaying to do that. So we have been advising all credit card users to do not opt for moratorium on credit card. And if they can pay, they should pay, because the interest charged on credit card is not sustainable to pay for such a long period of time. And I would rather urge, and therefore we actually launched a product called a Stash on Cred, where a lot of people could just take an instant personal loan, which is at a much lower interest cost versus having to pay as high as 40%. You could take a loan of 15%, 12%, 13% on the platform and actually manage your finances better. So our advice as Cred is to, if you have the capability of paying, do not delay your credit card bills and pay them on time. And if you have to delay this, I would urge a lot of people to take a loan and pay it off versus revolve or delay their credit card bills.
All right. Well, we cannot stress this point more, whether it's credit cards, whether it's loans. If you think you're okay on your cash position, please do pay it off, because the whole interest bit can really cause significant harm to your financials later. You may not pay now, but later you'll have to pay an extremely high amount. So it's best to just sort of squeeze yourself a little, but pay off all your financial obligations. You can continue staying a member of Cred as well then. Okay, Kunal, really appreciate you joining us today. Thanks so much for giving us your thoughts, your views on the lockdown and coping with it, and of course how credit cards can play such an important role for all of us going forward. That was, of course, Kunal Shah, founder and CEO of Cred.